she?
No.
Okay. This hybrid meeting is being recorded and may be accessed by WebEx. The meeting link is in the calendar at burlington.org. If any board members are remote, all votes will be made by roll call. If connectivity is lost and we have a quorum in person, the meeting will continue. I don't believe Melissa's going to be on WebEx. She said she couldn't make tonight's meeting. So unless she shows up, we will just do the regular votes at the table. I think it's maybe a good opportunity for the equity statement. Educational equity means that every child belongs and receives whatever support he, she, they need to develop his, her, their full emotional, academic, and social potential to learn and thrive every day. This begins with kindness and valuing the humanity of every child and individual. At this point, would you please rise to the Pledge of Allegiance?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item on our agenda is the approval of the warrant. Is there a motion to approve the warrant?
So moved?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any questions? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That's 4-0. Next item on the agenda is approval of meeting minutes of 10/8/24. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second?
Is there any conversation, any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? 4-0.
Excuse me.
Public participation. This segment is for public comment on items that are not on the agenda. Comment will be limited to 3 minutes. Is there anyone either in the room or online for public participation? Hands up there, Bob. Okay, thank you. Information and reports. Student report.
We had our first plenary meeting on October 2nd, which we swore in the freshman student council. The pep rally will be, we'll get our info out to the classes about decor. As usual, freshmen are going to be black, sophomores blue, juniors white, seniors red. And we will also have a pep rally committee, which is led by members of any grade of the executive board, so look out for that on Flex Blocks. The seniors are planning for homecoming on November 22nd, 7 to 10 p.m., and the theme is Under the Stars, and ticket sales for that will start soon. They're also planning future babysitting nights as they did last year, which are holiday themed, and they're planning out Spirit Week leading up to the pep rally. The juniors are planning Spirit Hall decorating, sophomores have their pre-pep rally party on November 26th, and the freshmen will have their sports tournament. Thank you.
Any questions for Rashida? You have any questions for us? No?
How are things going, okay? Yeah?
They're going.
Going?
College applications.
Oh,
Say no more.
Where do you want to go?
That's a mystery. I'm superstitious.
All right.
All right.
I know that.
That's okay.
I don't get in.
That's
Yeah.
okay. Totally get it.
Totally get that. Well, good luck on all of your choices,
Thank you.
and thank you for a great report. Nobody has any comment? No questions?
Thank you.
Nice job.
Thank you.
Next item on our agenda is subcommittee reports. Are there any subcommittee reports? I always look at Jeremy because usually he's got
There
some.
always is.
Always rec department, right?
Yep, so rec, we had our meeting last night. Overlook Park is coming along. You'll be happy to know some of the public participation items at Fox Hill have been addressed and rectified for some of the grounds that were brought up. The memorial bench, downspouts, and some of the signage has been repaired. So all those comments that were made at public public participation have been addressed. Additionally, for the field subcommittee, we met on the 15th. We voted for the items that'll make the bid. So it'll be the ramp, field, landscaping, netting, lights, and seating. There was discussion about parking that'll probably come as a recommendation from this committee. And then during new business, I have something to bring up too about the charge, possibly expanding that, because we've been talking about a MOU draft for field scheduling that we'll need to discuss later.
Okay. Any input for Jeremy?
One alibi too, so we are on track for mid-November to have a schematic update, and the schedule is on track to get it out to bid in time right now for us to get the field open by next school year. So we're
The work over the summer?
correct. We're on schedule at this point. As long as we continue down this glide slope, we should be good for schedule to get things out to bid in a timely manner that allows us to get it open for the next school year.
Okay, sounds good. Any other subcommittee reports? Ways and Means. Cheyenne, you got anything for us?
At the moment, no new reports.
Well, it's nice to see you here.
Nice to see you too. Thank you.
Any other announcements from anyone? Happy Halloween coming? Okay, next item is Learning, Equity, and Thriving, and the first item here is the pigs at the elementary schools. I reached out to the individuals on the Sculpture Park Committee to discuss any issues that may have come up, and I asked especially about safety, and so the information about that is there really is no safety issue. The pigs are made of fiberglass, and they're very strong and sturdy, but they don't shatter if they were to somehow break. There's no lead paint involved. They have several coats of urethane, and Jonathan Sachs said he'd even put on another coat before they went to the schools. So I think any safety issues anyone had concerns with are really not too valid. And there is no advertising attached to these pigs. And I know Dr. Conti has put in a recommendation that he's in favor of this, and I would like to add my own personal opinion, which is simply that I think the kids think they're fun. I asked my grandkids, and my granddaughter said she really likes the one at Pine Glen, and she'd be sad if we took it away, so I'm in favor of the pigs. So let me find what the motion would be. So the motion, and then we can discuss it. It is recommended that the school committee vote to accept the pigs, one for each elementary school. Is there such a motion?
Please do.
If nobody wants to make a motion, I'm going to table this till the next meeting, because I know Melissa's in favor of this, and she's not here tonight. So is there a motion to accept the pigs, or isn't there?
I'll make the motion, I guess.
All right. Is there a second?
Yeah, I'll second, that's fine.
Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Megan?
So I still am not in favor of it. I know Ms. LaRue wrote us an email talking about signage that she'd like to have with the pigs at the schools. She said that there'll be a QR code that'll lead people to the Burlington Sculpture Park website, where then people will be able to see the businesses that sponsor the pigs. I don't think that we should be giving a member of the planning board an advantage to advertise on school property after youth organizations have come forward to us years over years saying, yes, we'd like to put signs up on the fences, and we'd like to advertise to help raise money for fields or sports organizations. I think that it's putting us in a position where we may or may not feel forced to accept the pigs because of building projects that we have coming before the planning board, the high school, Fox Hill, the field committee, the field at Marshall Simons. I think it's a conflict of interest. I had reached out to our town clerk. There was no disclosure for advertisements made by any members of the planning board, of the Sculpture Park Subcommittee of the Planning Board. So I have concerns about the advertising that was done. As elected officials, we are not supposed to advertise. I also think that, when this project came forward to us, the signs weren't included, but now they are. They weren't, the signs at the elementary schools bringing people to the sculpture park with each pig, they weren't included, but now they are. So it's set.
No signs included in
Their
this.
email to us, she said, if the pigs are accepted by the school committee, they will be installed with a small sign that includes the Pigs on Parade logo and a line stating, a project of the Burlington Sculpture Park with a QR code that leads to the Burlington Sculpture Park website. That's the email that she sent
Well, why don't you
to
make
us.
an amendment to the motion to leave out the code?
Well, I spoke with another person who said that they felt that the pigs were a safety issue. I spoke with teachers who felt like they didn't want to be responsible for the pigs. They didn't want to be responsible for the students when they're climbing on them in the snow, when they're wet. So I still think that there's safety concerns, even though, they are not made of a material that would shatter. And I also take issue with the fact that there's a pig already at one of the elementary schools before we've accepted the gift, so.
Okay. Anyone else have any comments?
I was going to say, I will. Again, my concerns initially were safety, and it was more to deal with people climbing on them and falling. And, as long as the principals and everyone are comfortable that that's not going to be an issue, then, I'm not the one who's governing that and looking over that. My understanding is, at least the one principal that has it, it's not an issue. And then, I guess my only other, I kind of feel the way that you do, that I was a little upset that one was put in without the school committee being advised. And I also kind of feel like we're installing it, you facilities are taking your time and your effort and school's money to install these things, without us knowing how much time that's taking and, whatever. So it's a cost in a sense. But in the end, if the students want it, the principals aren't opposed, I am like this for a couple weeks now, and at this point, I'm just going to let it go. And if principals want it, then I'm okay with it. But I wanted to express what my feelings and concerns were and why I've been on the fence.
Is there any other input?
Madam Chair, I kind of would echo Mr. Wojcik's concern about the QR code. I wouldn't be in support with the QR code, taking it to something that's advertising. I wasn't aware of that was going on there.
Yeah, I want the QR code off, too.
Yeah,
This
so.
is the email that she sent to the committee.
When was this email dated?
Let's see. The last one she sent was. May I also ask why she isn't here tonight? It was my
Yes, because I
understanding she was supposed to come.
told her that I thought that it would be better if she wasn't. She was busy, and I said, don't worry about it. All right,
The email came in on 10:15, I believe. Yeah.
okay,
10:15.
so would someone like to amend the motion to say that we accept the pigs without the barcodes?
I'll make the amendment if I can. I'll move to accept the pigs without the QR codes installed.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Is there any further discussion? So the motion we're going to vote on is to accept the pigs, well, okay, I guess first we have to accept the amendment. So let's first vote on the amendment. Amendment is to not accept the barcodes. No, actually, we don't need to do that separately. We can vote to accept the pigs without the barcodes. All those in favor? I'm in favor.
Except the pigs without the barcode was the, yeah, aye.
Right.
Okay. We now are the proud owners of four, I don't know, I think it's 4 lovely pigs. And I appreciate the work that the Sculpture Committee has done. I appreciate that they thought of offering the pigs to us because I think the kids like them and think they're cute. And I did clear up with the Sculpture Committee that if there was any problem with them, we could either, like if they fade or get old or broken or worn out or whatever, that we will consult them to, if they want to repair them or if at some point they need to just go where old pigs go. Bobby?
Can I just add that I'm aware of at least 5 pigs, as one was also offered to be donated to the Science Center?
Yeah, I don't know what that's all about. That isn't part of this motion, I don't believe. But Dr. Conti, do you have a input on this? Do you want to include that 5th pig just to cover the bases?
Yeah, I think if we're going to accept them all, we should accept the entire sty's worth.
Okay, we get the whole pig sty, huh? All right, so is there anyone
And he's
opposed to?
online, and sorry to interrupt through the chair.
Yes.
Ms. Pavlicek is online, and she would be willing to speak if need be.
Okay, just one second. So are we all, those of us who voted in favor, are we okay with the 5th pig that's currently at the Science Center?
I'd like to hear from Ms. Pavlicek.
Before we decide? Okay.
Hello, school committee. Can you hear me okay?
We can.
Oops, apologies. I'm at home. I had my COVID vaccine, so I wasn't feeling well.
Sorry.
So Mr. Musselman and myself actually donated the money and the funds for this pig in collaboration with the art department because one of our BHS students was going to design and paint along with some other of the BHS art students. Mr. Musselman and I thought this was a great collaborative opportunity between the art program at the high school and the sculpture park, and some of the money that we donated actually went towards BHS art scholarships. So Mr. Musselman and I were very proud to have this pig donated and painted, and we put our own personal funds in. And our thought was afterwards that we could put it in the tortoise enclosure out front where our tortoises are, and it would just be a great representation of science and the fact that our art students, particularly 1 or 2 that also work in the Science Center, painted some of the additional pigs that are going to the elementary schools. So because it was a great collaborative program for our students along with the park in the town, we just appreciated if you gave consideration for us to allow that pig to be at the high school as well in our tourist enclosure. And again, there's no advertising, there's just symbols of what we do at the schools. And yeah, so I just thought it was a great opportunity. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for your input. Okay, so to finish this off, can we just make the motion say that we have accepted the 5 pigs? Is that okay with you?
Do we need to accept the 5th pig since it was purchased by?
Let's just cover the base, just in case someone says, well, you didn't accept the 5th pig.
So I make a motion to amend the first vote to add the 5th pig.
Second.
All those in favor of the 5 pigs?
Aye.
Aye.
No.
You're voting no? So, okay, so it's a 3-to-1 vote to accept all 5 pigs. Thank you. Moving on.
Madam Chair, just because Mr. McMahon's here, may I just take him out of order?
You, absolutely.
Tim, come on up. Again, welcome again. This is not your first time in front of the committee, but...
I almost ran him over.
Oh,
Sorry.
I was letting that slide. I was worried about following the pig discussion, so here I am.
maybe next time. So As Principal McMahon has gotten to know Marshall Simons in the school, there are several questions that came up about after-school programming, and certainly a message from this committee through the interview process, and I think in our discussions are the committee wanted to see an expansion of the after-school activities for middle school students. We were going back and forth. There were some individual questions, and instead of bringing them in front of the committee individually, what we had talked about with Tim, Lisa, and myself, and Nicole is let's just do a summary of the middle school stipends, figure out what's running, what's not running, put together an evaluation process similar to the one that's done at the high school. And then we did have, again, the information is going to, in front of you, I'll let Tim present it. And then we do have a request at the end for basically a one-year amendment for this fall, for this winter and this spring. So, Tim, with that, again, thank you for coming out tonight.
Appreciate it.
And thanks for summarizing all this work. And hopefully it was useful for you, too. So
It was very much useful, honestly. So thank you, folks, for your time. I'll be brief, but I'll take any questions you have, obviously. So I just went through, this is reflective of the current stipends in the most recent CBA from 23-24. The red denotes those clubs that are currently not running. Green is what's running. Blue is what's running, but does not involve students directly, and that's simply curriculum coordinators and AV specialists. Those are more based on more kind of leadership in the building. And then a few at the end that are in bold, those clubs are in the infancy stages that are yet to be categorized. They will be at the end of next fiscal year. So went through everything. And the green, like I said, the green is clubs that are currently running in some way, shape, or form. And then the far right column just shows how many kids are currently involved. Again, all total, the number is about 750 of the kids involved. Now, obviously, there's overlap in that. I didn't go through each club and look for overlap in names of participants, but, every afternoon, in particular on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays, those are the days we have the late buses. We have 3 late buses that are packed every those 3 days, which is great. Ton of kids after school. For many kids, we have other proposals we're looking at for next year. There's some. I felt like this year we need to just kind of do a little kind of housekeeping, see what's running, what hasn't run recently, get a better sense of where our student interests are. But we're also getting excitement from kids who have come with other proposals, from a Lego club to increasing science. So there's other ideas that are popping up, which is a great thing for us. So right now, again, the involvement is awesome. The teacher, willingness to be after school and to support a number of groups is awesome. So what it came down to, and again, Dr. Condi and I have spoken about kind of short-term, long-term. Short-term, like I said, come this spring, I'll do kind of a full audit and get an idea of what we should be looking at to run for following years. For this academic year, my one ask, kind of out of order, if you will, is a middle school musical, which was brought to me by several parents over the summertime, and then I spoke to John Middleton Cox about it at length, and what would it take for us to put a musical on with middle school students. And basically, if you look at the last page is a kind of a budgetary quote that John and I put together, and his does reflect the stipend rate for this academic year. Basically, what we're looking at, the idea would be there's currently $4,000 allocated towards a middle school musical, which, to my knowledge, has never actually happened. No one's ever run a musical, at least in the past 10, 12 years, to my knowledge. That $4,000 would cover, your funding for set design, lighting, and so on. In order to make this a possibility, make it come to reality, the ask that I'm looking for would be 3 additional stipends for different directors of music and artistic director and choreography for a musical. John and I have sat down. We have tentative dates in the books. We would just essentially, so you would know, we'd have auditions for the musical in late February. Rehearsals start sometime in March. And then the performance would be a Friday evening show and a Saturday matinee show, both here at the high school. Rehearsals taking place at Marshall Simons. The shows would be here the first weekend of May. And what I tried to do by going through all the stipends, I know, I know they're allocated. I know there's not just money, money hanging around, but the stipends that are not currently being used amounts to about $23,000, give or take. And that's based on stipend rate of 23-24. My understanding is a 3.5% increase that would actually affect these stipends more accurately, so that number is probably off. So the 23,000, ideally, we're looking for about 11,000 and change to try to run a musical this year at the middle school, and then ideally, moving forward, make it more official and do the proper paperwork necessary to make it something we do in perpetuity. So,
So the normal stipend process, if you want to say we want to start a chess club, is typically a 3-year process. So it would start student interest, teacher interest. There's sort of an initial amount that increases slightly, and then in the 3rd year, it's placed where it should be in our salary scale in the CBA, so in the contract, in the teacher's contract. So we spent a lot of time in our prior contract organizing the stipends. The challenge with a musical is it's really not something that you can gradually get to. You either need to have a musical or not have a musical. And so I certainly want to support the middle school, the establishment of a middle school musical. If there's teacher interest, clearly there's student interest and parent interest. We feel like we're asking the committee essentially just to reallocate some of the stipends that aren't filled into a middle school musical for this year. We'll obviously incorporate then the musical into the contract given the school committee vote and into the operating budget for fiscal '26 moving forward. So again, this is out of order. The reason it's out of order is, again, we have a new principal who is getting to know the school, and I want to support his effort and his teacher's effort to establish a middle school musical experience for the kids. For many years, it wasn't done. There was for those of you who are relatively new, I think there was a music-like experience with a vaudeville show.
It was a talent show.
It was a talent show.
It was great.
I know it was great. I'm not knocking the talent show, but that doesn't currently exist, so we really want to try to replace that experience. And again, no, we're doing this out of order, but I would support taking this out of order. We feel like we can, the fiscal impact is mitigated because of some of the clubs that aren't running, and then given a year exposure to this, we'll have the stipends at the middle school more organized and into the operating budget for fiscal '26.
What do you want? Do you want a vote on this?
I want a vote to establish a middle school musical, and then we'll sort of make the adjustments, but I don't want to add, you all have to approve stipend additions, so we just want to make sure that we can add the middle school musical stipends as proposed, and then understand that you'll see it again in the budget next year moving forward, and we'll add it to the contract as a side letter, as an amendment moving forward.
Can we have a motion and then we can discuss it? Oh, here we go again. Who's going to make the motion to approve the middle school musical?
So,
So moved? Okay.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All right, discussion. Catherine?
I have lots of questions.
Same.
So explain the categories to me, 1, 2, and 3. Like, I want to know how it works first, and then I have other questions.
So those predate me. My understanding from my homework is that those are categories based on how often the club meets, how many students are involved, and the overhead involved in certain clubs. So your more highly attended clubs typically are higher category because more kids are involved, and the stipend requires more effort on behalf of the advisor.
And how does it get decided? Like, I'm looking at clubs that I know, again, when my daughter was in school, that were quite popular, and how do we decide which ones are going to be picked and which ones aren't?
Which clubs are going to run and which ones aren't?
Which ones are running, which ones won't?
A lot of times, it's based on student preference. So if students stop signing up for the clubs, that's one reason a club won't run. We typically don't take them out of the contract if they're not running, so they typically are staying there not filled. It may also be that there's not an advisor who's willing to take on that club as well. So it may not run for those two reasons. And again, we tend not to take the clubs that don't run out. And what the principals do every year is we get a summary looking at participation and the number of meetings that people had. So, and it may come with a change in a program or a change in a teacher. DECA Club 14 years ago was not a very popular club, and so the business program has changed significantly. Now it's one of the more populated clubs. We've added an advisor just to manage the number of kids who are there, and it meets much more frequently. So the categories that you see were established actually as part of our last contract agreement to bring some parity, because clubs are introduced at different times. So you might have a high school French club and a high school Spanish club established in different years, getting different rates in terms of the contract. So what Nicole and I did was try to bring some order to that. So now when someone is proposing a new club, we have some ideas to the category it will eventually be in, and it's typically a 3-year process to get there. So someone's going to know if they're going to establish a Russian language club, that it's probably going to end up being a category, whatever it is, category 5, and that we can budget for that, and it's a 3-year process to get there. The musical, again, is a bit of a different type of experience because it involves multiple people, and we want to make sure that it gets established, that it's an experience that gets established right away.
So my feeling is, I think it's great. I don't think I'm opposed to it at all, but I feel like the talent show or vaudeville gives a wider variety of kids a chance to show their talent. And what happens, or I felt what happened, is that you have a group of kids who are in these musicals who, in the middle schools, and it used to be through select course or whatever, they were the chosen ones who always got picked for the musicals, so they got to be in, in the high school musicals. And there were all these other kids who had talent. They were either played instruments that were not couldn't be part of the pit orchestra. They sang a different type of music than musicals. They didn't get to have their chance to, kind of show their personality, in the middle school level or whatever. And I just kind of feel like that's going to facilitate that same kind of favoritism from middle school to high school. That's my concern with it. And I'd love to see the talent show come back. If we're going to spend this kind of money on, a musical, I'd like to see us spend some money on trying to do the talent show again. It was a lot of fun, and it was a variety of kids doing a variety of things and having a good time and putting skits together and, again, playing whatever, and, if they played piano or if they, wrote original songs or they had a band, whatever it was their opportunity to shine in a different way. And I think that's so important if they get that opportunity. So, again, I'm not opposed, but I'm just kind of telling you how I feel.
No, that's the feedback I've got from a lot of staff who've been there for a long time, because I don't think vaudeville's happened for a while, is my understanding.
No.
And the pushback from staff who've been there a while said it took students out of class a lot.
It did.
And that was the pushback from staff, because again, I spent the summer talking to staff, what are you looking for? They do, to your point, a talent show would be appealing, right? I think there's room for both. I think you could pull off a musical and a talent show if you chose different seasons, different times of the year. But the feedback from most of the staff who've been there for a long time said the vaudeville was awesome, tradition, they loved it, but kids were out of class a lot of time. That was,
Well, I think, but, so why can't we do something similar for the talent show, that they're not out of class? We
think
do
you
it
could do
after
both.
school. I mean, that'd be my preference. I mean, I didn't like when kids were pulled for select course in class. When my daughter was there, she was pulled out of class for select course. So that's my preference, is not to pull people from class. But if you have kids who want to participate in a talent show of some sort, why not do it after school? Just like a play practice. Same
yeah, the
thing.
talent show was in there as a stipend, no one's applied for it over the past few years. So it stayed in the contract.
But if it's a during school thing where they're pulled, I would see why teachers would not want it.
It can be after school. So the stipends mean it's just out of contracted time. It doesn't necessarily happen. Actually, the majority of stipends do happen after the school day, so that would allow to have it. But again, Tim, we can get some feedback on the talent show stipend. Maybe it's not enough money, maybe there might be other reasons, but again, there's no reason we can't make an adjustment or try to run both. We just don't have a middle school musical at this time. And again, we could certainly do some research on a talent show at a different time. That stipend already exists, so it may just be another adjustment that needs to happen in order to have an advisor sign up and then have the student participate.
Okay. Thank you.
Megan?
Thank you. So I think this is a great idea. I fully support the idea of a musical, and I think that I empathize with what Catherine said, too. I think that there's an opportunity, some students are going to be more comfortable, with other students, performing together with other people. Some people are going to be more comfortable or excited about the opportunity to show off their unique talent. So I think having both would be great. I also feel like back when vaudeville, am I saying that right?
Yes.
Okay, back when vaudeville was the thing, we didn't have the after-school transportation that we have now, so I think having that will be helpful with students being able to participate with vaudeville after school. But anyway, I just want to thank you for bringing this forward, the musical that is Tim, and I've just been hearing really wonderful things about everything that you're doing at Marshall Simon, so I want to thank you for that.
Great, thanks, Megan.
Jeremy?
First of all, let me preface this comment as an alumni of vaudeville, voted most likely to live, sing Vanilla Ice, and dance poorly. I support this also. I did have a question monetarily. So the $23K that's not being used currently for stipends is going to be reallocated to cover the 11.2 that's in the proposal, correct?
And the chunk needed, yeah, not.
Okay, and then the 11.2 left over can be reallocated if one of these clubs wanted to come up, but in the event all of them wanted to, we'd have to make a decision on who to cut, yes?
Right, and typically, through the chair, Mr. Brooks, they're typically posted in May or June and assigned at that time, so I would say probably unlikely that some of these are going to run at this time, but again, I think given a year's worth of time, giving some lead time, some advertisement, some background, I'm hoping more of these clubs will run next year, or be assigned and run next year, and then we would just need to make sure that we account for the musical in the operating budget moving forward.
You set? Okay, my turn.
Nicole has her hand up, too.
Oh, Nicole, go ahead.
I just had a question. So in the contract, the musical director stipend already exists in a category 1 at $1,289 for this year. So are you looking to amend this to the amount that you have there?
So that is related to that stipend, and that is allocated for someone to direct a musical, is that correct? So that would be, because I thought that was, I misinterpreted that stipend then. So yeah, I guess we're looking to add to that, yes.
Okay, so you're looking to take it from the existing middle school musical director from a category 1 to a 4?
Yes, correct, yeah, sorry, yes.
Okay, so here are my comments. I think it's great. I'm all for it. I think some of us have some nostalgia for vaudeville. Back in the day, it was kind of a cool event. And the fun thing about it was you'd go to vaudeville and you'd see these students that, your son or daughter was playing hockey with, or, you knew them from other events. And here they are on this talent show event, showing talents that you never knew they had. And I can just vividly remember some of them. They were great. They were so much fun. So I can understand where Catherine's coming from. I do know that it went away because, academics do have to come first. And pulling kids out of class, whether it's for a talent show or a musical, is not going to fly with parents. So however you manage to go about this, just keep that in mind. And the other point that Catherine made that I would also agree with is include as many kids from different realms as possible. And as she said, not just the kids that are sort of already targeted to go through the musicals. I think sometimes there are a lot of hurt feelings over when students that want to try out for something, but they don't get anywhere because someone else has been involved in the program since they were 3, and, So as a principal, you've got your hands full with that emotional piece of it.
Yeah, I mean, we've already talked, I think it's a really good point. I mean, we've talked about preliminarily choosing a musical that has a big ensemble, so that, because we have students that require wheelchair accessibility, you know, and things of that nature, that this could be an all-inclusive event for them as well. A talent show, to that point, I mean, I'm making notes here, because if there's a way to do both, I have some thoughts that I'm, you know, that I'll pitch to my staff. But, you know, inclusivity is part of it, you know, and I think there are, to your point, having a forum for all students to show their talents, because some don't fit the musical genre, right? Some
Exactly.
kids who can break dance or sing a different non-musical type form might not have their niche in a musical setting. Totally fair point. So, yeah, the idea is inclusivity. And an event like this could be big. And you know, growing pains first year, yeah, absolutely. I mean, using the high school stage is a reason to have a bigger cast. High school stage is bigger than our auditorium would be, so more kids could be part of that production.
Well, I got a text message while everyone was discussing this, and it said, it was from a parent, said, "Give Tim his musical." So you have a lot of parent support, too.
Good.
So on that note, thank you for your presentation. We'll put the motion to a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Is there anyone opposed? That's 4-0.
Thank you.
Good luck with the
I
music.
will circle back, though. I will follow up with the talent show, because I think there's a room for both. I do. And I think, you know, more kids involved, the better. So I'll get back to you on that sooner rather than later.
Thank you.
All right?
Thanks.
Thanks, folks. Appreciate it.
Come back soon.
Hope so.
Visit.
I guess that-
Visit.
I will. I'd love to come back and visit. I would.
Thank you. Okay. Shall we go back to MCAS report?
Yes, Madam Chair, as you all know, October is MCAS month, so Dr. Chen and her staff have put together a MCAS summary for the committee, so,
I just want to make sure that it's been shared with Mr. Kuna again.
okay.
Mr. Kuna, have you received it? I just want to make sure, because I know last time we're having some difficulty. I'm going to move up there if that's okay with you guys. And I also want to thank members of my team for being online as well, too. So in case there are specific questions that need to be asked, they're also online for you as well, too. Go ahead, please. All right, next. So first of all, I just want to talk about the difference between a criterion referenced and a norm referenced testing. Criterion referenced is, how does my student compare to a population of like students? That's more of the norm reference testing. And how does my student body perform an identified body of knowledge? And those are the state standards. I wanted to make sure that you received my updated one. I just sent to you my most updated.
A new one? Newer one?
Just a few minutes ago. All right. Thank you. The first two slides should be about the same. All right. Then this is a video on student growth, but I'm just going to summarize it for you guys. Student growth is something that we also look at here, not only the aggregate and when we distill down the data, but also the student growth percentile. It provides a measure of the degree to which a student's achievement has changed from the prior years to the current year in comparison to other students in the same grade who performed similarly in the past. And so when we take a look and we start drilling down, I think it's not only just the aggregate, but I want to talk about that the student growth is also something that we also take a look at, because we want to make sure that our students who are already high achieving continue to grow, and those who are continuing to grow are making high student growth. Next, please. The district assessments that we're taking a look at for this particular year. No videos necessary, just the next slide, please. Yes, the The district assessments that we're looking at are, that we're going to be using this year to really take a look at this is the K through 10 iReady, which is both criterion referenced and normative. It is also used as a diagnostic assessment. The K through 5 DIBELS, which is a universal screener that's been approved by the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education as a universal screener, and also to be used for progress monitoring. That is also used to look at our at-risk students when it comes to reading. And in math, we're taking a look at using K through 10 and iReady Math, which is both a criterion referenced and normative diagnostic assessment. All right, next please. So one of the reasons why, next please, we want to take a look at absences is because last year, in particular, we were cited at both Fox Hill Elementary School and also Burlington High School when it came to the number of students taking our assessments, especially on MCAS. And so we've made a very concerted effort to ensure that all students are present during their MCAS assessments. So as you can see, these are the number of students who are absent at Burlington High School, the middle school, Fox Hill, Francis Wyman Memorial, and Pine Glen. Next, please. That was for English. And the next slide will show you that for math on the day that they were absent. And then next when it comes to science. And with regard to demographics, I think it's always important to paint a picture of who your students are. These are your elementary demographics. You have about 21.9 or 22% of students who are low income, 19% of students on IEP, about 7% students on 504, and about 8% students who are English language learners. In the middle school, you have about 21%, if you were to round up, of low-income students, about 18% on IEPs, 9% on 504 plans, and about 5% of students, of all students in the middle school, are English language learners. At the high school level, you have about 23 students who are low income, about 9.6 or 10% students on IEPs, about 11% students on 504s, and 9% students who are English language learners. Next. That being said, this is a comparison of how we have done throughout the years from 2019 to 2024 when it comes to where we are when it comes to the percentage of students exceeding, meeting, partially meeting, and not meeting. What we continue to look at is that we always want to continue to grow. And one of the areas that my team and I are taking a look at this year, especially with the DIBELS testing, the iReady testing, is taking a look at a new core Tier 1 curriculum. And that's one of the areas that we are focused on looking at. Next, please. And this particular one compares how we have done in each of the categories when it comes to grade 5 English. That also holds the essay and writing assessments when it comes to that compared to the state average. We're continuing to keep our eyes very open when it comes to writing. That's an area that we're taking a very hard look at. Next, please. And then this in particular graph right here will show you the percentage of students that are meeting and exceeding versus that of the state who are meeting and exceeding, and then what our average student growth looks like compared to our state average student growth percentile. Next, please. This talks about our middle school English student performance by year. It is a bar graph going from 2019 to 2024. And again, this Tier 1 curriculum that we're taking a look at through the adoption process will be from K through 8. Next, please. This right here is how we're doing when it comes to the aggregate versus that of when we're looking at writing of the state average. In some of our cases, and in most of our cases, like we exceed the state average. Next, please. And this takes a look at our achievement over time. It looks at not only the percentage of meeting and exceeding, but also that of how we're doing of our average student growth percentile and that of the states in comparison to the state. And the dotted line is that of the state. Next, please. This is our performance when it comes to our high school, when it comes to our ELL performance. And I've already been in conversations with both the department chair and also with the instructional coach, because we're continuing to take a look at, we did have a dip this year to see where the dip came from. This is not an overnight thing. I know that there was a lot of preparation work when it came to the year before that, of really working with students when it came to writing. But one of the things that we've seen when we dig down deep into our curriculum is the need not only for Tier 1 core curriculum, but also for strong writing curriculum. And that writing curriculum starting all the way from elementary school to middle school and all the way up to the high school. Next, please. This is comparison when it comes to the 10th grade average English, the average percentage correct, the state versus that of the district. And then this is what looks like of our performance over year when it comes to meeting and exceeding the state comparison and to our state average student growth percentile. And as I said, this year, we did take a dip when it came to, in particular, to our reading, in particular, to our writing. Now, the next slide is, this is how when we take a deep dive, it's one thing to look at the aggregate, but one of the things that my team and I do, in addition with that of the teachers, in addition to that of the principals, we need to take a look at how all of our students are doing. And so the areas that we continue to work on that, and it's been in our reports, is our multilingual students and also that of our students with disabilities. Now, one of the things I can tell you that we're also doing right now that we've put into place is that we have Landmark for all of our grade 5 students. We're getting all of our teachers trained on this. And so this way, that happens to be a language-based teams. They already exist at both the middle school and that at the high school, but we are training all of our grade 5 teachers this year. So I think that that's one of the areas that's really going to help to improve some of these writing scores and also reading as well too. Next, please. Now, this is the one that we've been really paying attention to, because while our reading may be doing, I would say, good, solid, but we can always improve. It's really, the hard look is that we need to really take a look at what's going on with our writing. And I would say that in doing a deeper analysis when it comes to working with the reading specialist, we really haven't been as consistent when it comes to our writing program, especially at the elementary schools. And I know that the middle school teachers are really wanting to look for a very strong writing program at the middle school as well too. And these are areas that we are working on this particular year. Next, please. This is going to be a consolidation of all of our math performances. This is the elementary math performance by student by year. These are the bar graphs that show how we are performing from 2019 to 2024. Next, please. This shows that, that as a district, we are in grade 5, that in the domains, we are surpassing when it comes to the state average. Next, please. However, one of the things that we continue to take a look at, which is very, very important, is to, again, take a look at our student growth percentile. Because I think while it's important that we are achieving, we also want to make sure that we continue to make growth and we're continuing to push our students. And that has also come up in our math report as well, too. And we really think that in taking a look at, as we go through this and putting Algebra 1, for instance, in the middle school, that's going to have an impact on what happens both at the high school and also at the elementary schools. Next, please. This is our middle school math performance of the year. It goes from 219 to 224. And again, when we break down the grade 8 math, when we compare the item category percentage compared to the state average, we are excelling the state average. Next, please. And then in middle school math, again, this shows the results of what happens from 219 to 224, and again, with our average student growth percentile. And then next, please, this is our high school math student performance by year. Again, we wanted to give you the same graph, so for same comparison of 2019 to 2024. And then, when it comes to grade 10 math, with the exception of the statistics and probability, that is a 2% decrease from the state. That's one of the areas that we are going to be looking at when it comes to our grade 10 math. We are surpassing the state average. Next, please. And this is an area that we're going to take a look at as to what's going on with our student growth percentile, because that's something that's very important for us to continue to challenge all of our students. Now, this is how we really look in the data when we start digging deeper into the data. Again, what it shows is that when it comes to our, when it comes to equity, when it comes to our reporting groups, the two groups that we really need to focus on, we need to focus on all groups, is our multilingual students and also with our students with disabilities. And that's something that we're continuing to dig deep down into to ensure that all of our students have access when it comes to all of the multiple pathways, and that there's no ceilings that we're putting on our students. Next, I want to talk about our science performance. This talks about how we're doing with our MCAS grade 5 student performance for the year. And I know one of the things as we started to really take a look at this particular data is that, and one of the things we're exploring with Dr. Conti and all of the elementary principals, is that we have a lot of great programming when it comes to the elementary schools, but when it comes to time is something that's really hard. And I just bring that up because you must have the social emotional curriculum. That is something that is very important because that relationship is foundational. Before students feeling safe, emotionally safe, physically safe, feeling as though they're welcomed, all students, that's very important in order for any achievement to occur. So when we decided to put the social emotional curriculum in, we also had to take some time away from science and social studies. So again, in spite of this, I really think that we've been working as hard as we can given the time that we have in science. All right, next please. As you can see that we have surpassed when it comes to the category percentages correct, when it comes to the state average, when it comes to grade 5. The grade 8 performance, one of the things that we're going to be doing is that we've been piloting has been Open Ed SciEd. The other thing that I just want to let folks know is that right now in 2024 and 2025, we're going to have field tests for all students in grades 5 and grade 8, and then 2025 and 2026 will be the first year will be operational, in which there's going to be a different type of assessment when it comes to science. It's going to be with deeper learning. It's going to be embedded with more of our performance task. But I do want to give a shout out to Sean Musselman and also to Wendy Pavlicek, because a lot of what they bring in when it comes to the writing of their science curriculum has been based on really performance task. And so, again, it's the time. It's the time, I think, that is really hurting us when we look at it at the elementary lens level. All right, again, this is grade 8 when it compares to the state average. Next, please. This is our overall grade 10 when it comes to performance of how we're doing in science. And then when we break it down in particular, in grade 9 biology, next please, grade 9 thank you. No, that's grade 10, I apologize. We are definitely surpassing that of the state average. One area that we need to continue to take a look at is our grade 10 biology when it comes to particular what's going on with grade 10 biology. Next, please. This is breaking it down to our grade 10, when it comes down to our grade 10 physics. And so our next steps, I kind of gave you like an overview, is to continue to analyze the data, knowing that MCAS is only one data point, having grade level meetings, I've attended all of the grade level meetings with my instructional team as well, too, that just happened last week at each of the elementary schools. They're starting to think about who are the students who will need some additional interventions and the What I Need block. On November 5th, all teachers in the elementary school, including special education teachers, English language learner teachers, about 245 teachers are going to be trained in DIBELS 8. In December, about 86 teachers are going to be trained in DIBELS 8. And the goal really is for next year also for us to have an oral reading fluency test and to use DIBELS 8 to continue to check our reading when it comes to grades 6, 7, and 8. We're going to continue to look at iReady. That has been a pretty good indicator for us on how our students do perform on the MCAS. That has been expanded this year to 9th and 10th grade when it comes to the high school. It's been put in for the first year when it comes to grades 1 through 5 in math at the elementary level. It's been used, however, at the English level already, and we're going to continue to work on Tier 1 instruction and continue to work with the math leadership team, and also when it comes to the English Literacy Task Force on taking a look at, respectfully, what does Algebra 1 look like in the middle school. We've been taking a look at some of the pathways. We're going to be taking a look at which pathway we like, and then we're going to be switching on to talk about what textbook we might be adopting when it comes to Algebra 1. And we're also going to be giving to you guys also sometime in February our recommendation as to a Tier 1 core curriculum when it comes through K through 8 when it comes to literacy. We're continuing with the landmark PD. We're continuing to do curriculum revisions. And there is a subgroup working with Gail Lovett, who is our consultant when it comes to reading and taking a look at the writing revolution and taking a look at writing at the sentence level and expanding that all the way from elementary all the way up to the high school. So those have been our steps. And then the other thing that I think that I just wanted everyone to know is that we have to abide when it comes to state regulations. You have to when it comes to the minutes that are required for ESOL instruction, depending on whether or not a student is level 1, level 2, level 3, and level 4. And I want to give kudos to Carrie Lamprey and her team because we have found very creative ways in which to not only meet that time in elementary school, but also to meet the curriculum, the core curriculum that is required by the state. And so sometimes that will mean that students may have to get some of that in science and social studies and WIN block and also English. But I think that we've been talking, Carrie and her team and I have been talking about if we were to have a new elementary schedule, what some of that collaboration might look like, what some of those co-teaching models might look like. And so to me, this is a very exciting time because we're digging deep into the data. We actually have other assessments that we've put into place that can provide us with some vertical, both horizontal and vertical data that can be used, that can allow us to talk and use the same language. And we're really taking a deep dive when it comes to looking at our data. And I want to thank the school committee also for their support in Open Architect, because a lot of those graphs you saw really came from using Open Architect. All right. This time I wanted to ask if that was a quick overview, if you guys had any questions. And I also have some members on the line that could also answer any questions you have with regard to science, social studies, English. I'll put on my glasses so I can see.
Questions?
It was pretty thorough.
Nobody? Nobody has
fire
any
away.
questions? Yeah, okay, go ahead, Jeremy.
So looking at basically when we started out the English Language Arts, slide 14, it shows to me, again, unless I'm misinterpreting the data, the cohort that would have started during COVID still hasn't recovered fully, and then your cohorts meeting or exceeding are declining. Like, what are we doing in reference to that? And then it kind of carries on with the year-over-year averages where we exceed the state standard, but the overall state standard is declining along with our meeting and exceeding in individual growth and meeting exceeding. So what curriculum, I guess, how are we affecting curriculum? What controls and monitors are we looking at to turn that around? And then you'll make sure that initial group of, again, I think it's most prominent during that 3 to 5, because those fifth graders now are ones that started during COVID, and we're seeing that most, the biggest delta between where they were and where they are now.
And I want to say that you're absolutely right. That's one of the areas that we have seen. And one of the things that Wendy and Sean have also done is that, well, we're realizing that the science test is also a reading test, right? It's becoming more and more so a reading test, so that our students in particular, especially our students in special education and our multilingual learners, when there is difficulty when it comes to the acquisition of reading, right? There's a true correlation. We've broken it down to the people who are not meeting where they need to be when it comes to the science. So one of the things that I've outlined is Landmark. I want to thank Christina Ciccolini. I know that they've put that in the middle school for about 4 or 5 years. They've done that at the high school, but one of the areas that we're connecting this now is at the elementary schools, and that's all a grade 5, and she's working hard to provide that training. The other thing that I think is really going to help is the adoption of our Core 1 curriculum, the Tier 1 curriculum. 3 out of the 4 that we're taking a look at have been approved already by DESE. 1 is about to be approved, but we're taking a very hard look at it. I also want to thank Sean and also Wendy for their help with this. Sean, in particular, Musselman, has been ensuring that there's cross-curricular. And so what I mean by that the nonfiction text that we're taking a look at in each of the reading curriculums is not only representative of our student population, but there are nonfiction texts when it comes to the science curriculum and also the history curriculum, so I want to thank them for that. But I would say overall, I'm very excited about the DIBELS training that we're going to be receiving. That is a very, very specific subgroup of assessments that will really allow all of our teachers, when we train them, they're all speaking the same language. The biggest bang for your buck is your oral reading fluency, because the more you can be able to read words accurately, there's a direct correlation when it comes to comprehending. And then there's another assessment that we're taking, a subtest we're taking a look at, and that one is basically when it comes to decoding. And so a lot of these programs that we're taking a look at have not only the important parts when it comes to the science of reading, when it comes to the decoding aspect, right? That's very important, but it also has a very deep-rooted reading comprehension. And I would say that the principals and also the teams thus far that I've sat on every single, for last week, we've been analyzing this data for a while, but last week I was able to go to every single one of the data meetings that they have done. I really want to applaud the principals and their work that they have done thus far. They're really inviting the teachers to the table to own it, which I think is very important, because I think kind of the model that we had before was more of the reading specialists and math specialists who are owning it, but we're really moving towards more of a coaching model, so that the reading and math specialists who are the experts and the key of that knowledge are also educating all of our teachers. And so I really think with the interventions that we've put into place with oral reading fluency that we're going to be really focused on in both Tier 2 and Tier 3. And I also really think that with the interventions that we've also put into place when it comes to maybe even giving a double dose when it comes to foundations, that is going to be extremely helpful for our students. And I think that we will see some gains. The same thing, I want to applaud Carrie Fortunato and all of her math specialists. What they've done with the iReady is to already identify this summer, we went and identified all of the power standards from K to 12. And because you cannot teach all of the standards, you cannot, but there are some core standards that every single grade level has to master. There's no excuse. Every single student, regardless if you're in special education, you're a multi-language learner, whoever you are, you've got to master these standards because they're going to carry you to the next step, right? they've started to analyze that particular data by matching where the kids are not doing well in the standards, and that is going to be their interventions. And they're going to be working with not only the math specialists, with both the Tier 2 and the Tier 3 students, and they're really taking a hard look at the iReady data. Last year, the data we had didn't break it. It wasn't criterion referenced. iReady is criterion referenced. It breaks it down by standard. So we're going to be able to have a bigger picture of what's going on.
Okay, Dr. Conti wants to say something.
No, again, Mr. Brooks, just, I think Dr. Chen and her team are really looking hard at the curriculum, which is what ultimately will sort of help. But in looking at slide 16, the way I sort of look at this from sort of a bigger picture piece is the growth scores between 40, 60, 45, and 55 in that band is basically students growing, they're making a year's worth of growth in a year's worth of time. That's sort of what it is. You're not going to see the chart on the left change in regards to COVID, the impact on COVID, until you see the chart on the right sort of above 60, because a lot of our students have to make more than a year's worth of growth in that year's worth of time to make that up. So what I would say is we took a big hit. We're progressing sort of a year's worth of growth in a year's worth of time, but we haven't yet recovered. We're going to have to see that growth come up. So I think aligning the curriculum stuff is, I'm really paying attention to the chart on the right, because again, you're not going to see that dip. If kids continue to learn at the same rate from the impact that they took, they're going to continue to be sort of behind.
Completely acknowledge that. I'm asking these questions not as an admonition. I'm trying to understand the data being presented to me. So yeah,
But I'm
that was
saying,
helpful.
I think you're right on
helpful
top
input,
of it, is what I'm saying. What Lisa's team has to do and what our teachers are trying to do is to get kids to learn at more than a year's worth of, make more than a year's worth of growth in a year's worth of time. And that's what's going to have to take place over multiple years in order to get that curve, up. So that's sort of what I'm looking at. If we were seeing kids making less than a year's worth of growth, that would be sort of a significant issue, but we're not going to make up the loss unless we can really get that growth percentile up above 60.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
that's fair.
More
And then
questions?
just one clarifying point to that. So going back to something you said, I want to make sure I'm understanding you correctly. You said some of that dip was attributed to struggles that the EL students were having. So basically, this data is not broken out granularly enough to capture that, right? So
No. So if you take a look at where we broke it down even more, sir, is when you take a look at, and I apologize that this is on me, that I didn't rename all the slides or put page numbers on them. That's my fault. I'm sorry for that. If you take a look at, it's the slide, this really pretty one.
23?
You have the MCAS 2024 grade 3 through 10 English data slide.
23.
23, thank you so much. When you take a look at this is breaking it down, the percentage of students meeting and exceeding, and then this is really when we start taking a look at the deep dive when it comes to this. This is still at a pretty high level, but then you have to look at when you do an item analysis, what is it that the students are particularly not doing well? So when you have, like, for instance, let me give you an example. In 10th grade, right, you have 0% in an 8th grade, you're multilingual learners, right? None of them are meeting or exceeding, right? With students with disabilities in 8th grade, it's only 31%, right? And then it's 17% in 10th grade. And then your low income, so that's what I mean by taking a really hard look.
it
And
makes more sense now because I was looking at this chart from across the room before I got it on my screen. So
I apologize for going too quickly. And
Okay.
then the other piece, because I just want to be as transparent as I can, because I think it's important for us to identify, to really applaud the areas that we've grown in, but really just identify areas that we need to improve on. And then if you take a look at the next slide, right, in which it's really broken down when it comes to our essay writing data. One of the things that we've talked about is, okay, yes, we are improving in reading, or we're doing well in reading, but if we're going to divide it up, now, Virginia, it doesn't divide up. Virginia doesn't divide it up, but here in Massachusetts, you can divide up the reading portion with the writing portion. And then when you divide up the reading and the writing portion, you begin to take a hard look again at your L students and then your students with disabilities, right? And this is the average percent correct. So this is the average percent correct. And then you compare that to all of your students, right? Not only in Massachusetts, but all of your students in BPS, right? And so you say, why? What's going on, right? What's going on with the curriculum? What do we need to improve? Are we ensuring that every single child, regardless of who they are, has access to the curriculum? Are we watering down the curriculum, right? Because it's very important that everyone has grade level standards.
And so, and then one last thing to wrap this up is a factor that we have to pay attention to that we really haven't traditionally have to pay attention to is student mobility. So the multilingual students that we are currently having, when did they join us and how much of our curriculum did they experience? Because if they haven't been in Burlington for 10 years, then it's hard for us to recognize their progress in our curriculum. So a more mobile student population, a different student profile is also going to impact what this is. And again, Lisa and her team are looking at this really individually. I think from a parent's perspective, I would really pay attention to that growth percentile for your children, and that would be a score that I would sort of pay close attention to. And then the other thing that we went over quickly was MCAS is, from my perspective, probably the least useful instructional assessment that we have. It looks at more of our curriculum holistically, but the other assessments that Lisa discussed at the beginning that we provide multiple times in a year are much better for us to make adjustments to instruction with. So again, MCAS is one measure, but we have many measures that I think are more relevant. So again, and I know I've sat in on some of the meetings, and again, Lisa and her team are really getting into this in great detail, so thank you.
Are there any other questions?
Yeah, I wanted to follow up on the Landmark PD. I know that the 5th grade is being trained in language-based classroom. Yeah, are we planning on moving that down to 4th grade, 3rd grade, 2nd grade, kindergarten?
So I just want to make sure that, Christina Ciccolini, are you online?
Yes.
Yes, you will do a much better job than I will in articulating that, since will you kindly share your plan, or our plan, please?
Sure. So yes, it's going to move down through the grades. So I was going to have it actually go down to 4th grade, but with this new data that we've been looking at, I'm moving it down to 3rd and 4th grade for next year. So we're going to continue to move down through all the grades and making sure all the teachers are trained.
Great, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I have kind of a question in regards to something that Dr. Conti had mentioned. So I know a year or two ago, there were students that we had that were coming in from other countries at a high school level age, but their education was about 3rd grade. So when it comes to, we talk about catching kids up after COVID, how do you catch someone up from 3rd grade up to a high school level taking MCAS? I mean, how is that, what's taken into consideration? Do they take the test? I mean, I kind of want to understand that a little bit.
Do they take the
I'm curious,
MCAS?
do they take it?
I think they have to take it after a year.
Yes, they do have to take it after a
So
year.
how do you fill that gap from 3rd grade to 11th, 10th, 11th, and 12th? I mean, how are they expected to pass
With
that
great
test?
difficulty.
I'm just saying, it just seems ridiculous to expect that. The state to expect that, and for us to expect that. And when if you look at, again, I feel like almost you need to pull those students out when you're doing the evaluation in terms of looking at our overall growth with the state, because that affects us.
Right, so if we're talking averages, that is 100% true. I would also say that many of our newcomer students also have experienced significant growth, and that's due to the efforts of their teachers, again, and Ms. Carrie Lamprey, who speaks to you all the time, is our Director of Multilingual Learning. She does a fantastic job.
Yes.
So it's a complex task, but I do think our teachers are looking for support and looking for tools and looking for curriculum experience that is going to impact a more diverse student body. And again, I always view that diversity as a strength, but it does make our classrooms more challenging. And it does, when you look at our average scores, and why some of the rankings I get frustrated with is because they don't sort of equate for the number of newcomer students and then what the educational background of those newcomer students are. So again, we can provide you a more detailed presentation as we move forward. This committee's been very supportive of additional multilingual teachers. I think the committee's also established a sort of alternative day program for some of our high school students that we're keeping them in school. And again, keeping students in school is exactly what we should be doing. But in fact, the more kids who are in school and taking a state assessment may in fact negatively impact our average, right? So that's, you just have to be careful how we look at all the numbers. And again, I think ultimately it's going to come down to individual students. And when parents look at their individual student performance, I think the MCAS will be a part of a story. And I think we have other tools and other experiences that we also need to make sure tell a more complete story.
And I just want to say that the students that I met, again, that were coming in, very enthusiastic, really want to learn. So, I mean, it's not, I want to make sure and make it clear that at least the exposure I had, these kids really do want to learn. It's not that they don't, but it's hard when you come in here and you're expected to make up this much. And I hand it to them, and I hand it to our staff, too, because they've done a really good job, I think.
Right. And all those students are also being assessed using access testing because we have to figure out what level of support that they need when they're here. So there are also very different levels of multilingual students. Some are perfectly bilingual and they don't need any support, and others need a significant amount of support. So again, there's no monolithic answer. And I do think it's the cultural diversity and addition to the sort of overall community are fantastic. It just makes the sort of the traditional classroom achievement journey much more difficult.
All right, I'd like to wrap it up. I don't have any questions, but I have a couple of comments, and then we can move on. I think it's important to note that this was a rough year for the entire state. The MCAS dipped statewide this year. What I find interesting is that our variation from the state results doesn't change a lot. If the state curves, we curve above it almost in every category, not every, but mostly. So I just find that interesting. I think the change in demographics that Catherine pointed out has a large effect, and it depends community to community on how much change you get. Some communities get very little and others get quite a bit. I think that the curriculum improvements that you're working on, I think will have a huge impact on MCAS scores, but I don't think we're going to see that until they're implemented and working. And the ninth grade versus 10th grade science.
Yep.
I haven't kept up on whether or not we're still off what the students who take biology in ninth grade, what do the other students take? Is it still that, a little bit of physics, a little bit of chemistry? Is it still that other course?
Well, still physical science would
Yeah,
be
okay.
the alternative, but understand that the science MCAS is an elective MCAS. So the vast majority of our kids, they require one MCAS science to get a diploma. Our students, by vast majority, take biology.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's really what you're seeing is the vast majority of our kids take
But
biology.
when you look at the 10th grade biology, the students who are really into it are going to take it in the ninth grade.
Correct.
And they've
That's right.
scored very high.
Yes.
The next group, who probably started with general science and then take biology in the 10th grade, they didn't do so hot compared to the state averages. So I think that's something that,
Yep.
when you get to it, that's another
Yep.
curriculum area that needs to be looked at.
Yep.
Because I have always felt that the ninth grade options leave a little bit to be desired, but But good for the ninth grade bio kids who've done so well. Okay,
Thank you.
why don't we move on?
All right. And I want to thank my team. Thank you very much, team members. Thanks.
Thank you, team members. All right. The next item is Fox Hill School Building Committee update. Dr. Conti.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We actually spent about 3 hours today at Fox Hill. We were there with both Doran Whittier and the members of the DINISCO team. We're starting to go through individual classroom layouts with the teachers at Fox Hill. So we met with the music team, we met with the nurses, we met with the art teacher, we met with some of the special education staff. And so we're really, it's becoming a real project now, which is very exciting because all of the prior conversations we've had with staff was, this is a possibility. And now that it's becoming real, I think there was a lot of excitement being expressed by the teachers, and just them recognizing the differences in the space that they're going to have, I think was very uplifting. So there's a lot of work happening now. We're going to, again, meet again on Monday and do more of the individual classroom space work. And again, that work is ongoing, and we're still sticking to the timeline that you're all well aware of.
Excellent. Any discussion? Okay, moving on to Burlington High School Building Committee.
So at the last meeting, we were presented many different options on what we could do. We eliminated, I'll say, what was it, 5 options we eliminated?
I wasn't there, but I would like to see the 5 that were eliminated, so I can
They were kind of,
convince
we'll show
myself
them
that
to you,
I
but-
would have voted for that.
Yeah. So that was, I thought, very important for us to do because there's too many to
So
look
many,
at. And we did take into consideration what TAPE, how they felt, like, why they thought maybe the ones they expressed their opinion on some of them being difficult. And some of them were kicked out because students were going to be located off-site for
Yeah, and that's
a
not
long
gonna
period of
work. And
time,
then, yeah, it's-
which it's expensive, et cetera. So I think, the ones we eliminated, I think we did for good reasons.
Just send me the numbers so I can look at them.
And then, other than that, Dr. Conti, if you want to add anything to that, but the next meeting is going to be November 14th at 6:30, and then we have another meeting, is it the 20s, what is it, November? I forgot to write the date down. But another meeting taking place a little later in November at 6:30. It's a community presentation. What's the date on that again?
I want to look right now.
Had it up a minute ago. Yeah, it's November 19th.
Yep.
At the high school. It's a community presentation, 6:30 to 8:30 PM.
Okay, is that it?
Yeah.
Pine Glen School Standing Agenda Item, anything new with Pine Glen that we need to talk about? I think we may have reached the end of the line on this standing agenda item.
Sorry.
We're all good?
Yeah, I still have the meeting up over here, so.
Transportation update?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to, Bob and I followed up after our last school committee meeting and wanted to present the committee again with some concrete information, because one of, I think, our frustrations is we often talk about the issues we have, and we wanted to present some concrete information from the bus company and make a recommendation that we think is just part of a sort of a short-term solution, and we have other stuff that we need to work out. So Bob, I'll let you go through the, did you lose the, did you?
I can do it over here, I just need
I asked if
one
you could
second, sorry.
put it up on the screen so people who are watching online can see it
Okay.
as well. I didn't mean to mess up his groove.
So eat. Got it. All right, so one
Don't worry about it.
Yeah, let's just discuss it.
Let's just go ahead and
Okay, so, this is kind of brief, but I just wanted to be, just right to the point with some of the let's say, situations, variables when it comes to transportation. I don't want to read every single one, but I will. The number of full-size buses, number of stops per route, time between tiers, bus capacity versus ridership and traffic. Those are the current variables that we are dealing with on a day-to-day basis. We do have 18 full-size buses. All 18 are used on the first tier at the middle school. Pine Glen has 5 buses, Memorial has 6, Fox Hill has 7 buses on the second tier, and then on the third tier is Francis Wyman and the high school, both with 9 buses. Average number of stops per route, you can see, varies between 10 and 13. Average means that there are definitely more than 13 and less than 13 on some stops, depending on the way the neighborhoods are laid out. Time between tiers, there's approximately 30 minutes between the tiers. And what the tiers are is, again, using all 18 buses. So we have the middle school as Tier 1. We have, again, Pine Glen, Memorial, Fox Hill for Tier 2, and then Francis Wyman in the high school for Tier 3. Why is that important? It's important because there's approximately 30 minutes to drop kids off, then go start the next tier or route, and then get to the next building before the homeroom bell rings, and then in some instances get to the school to allow enough time for students to get down the hallway to their lockers or possibly even get breakfast. Bus capacity versus ridership is something that we discuss frequently. Our buses have 77 passenger capacity. There's 25 seats. Of those 25 seats that hold 3 passengers, and then there is 1 seat that only holds 2 passengers. So 2 passengers per the 26 seats total would be approximately 52 riders. Why do I stress that? Generally, as students get larger, let's say in the high school, 3 to a seat is not really wanted. One thing I will stress is that most cars or SUVs have the same size rear seat that does have 3 seat belts. So while it's not comfortable for a 4-hour ride, let's say to New York, I would say for a 20-minute ride, it could be acceptable if this committee feels that way. So generally, once we see about 50, 55 students on a high school bus, we would say that bus is near or at capacity, and then we look to address that. Again, why do I mention that? Because at the high school, with the 9 buses that we currently have, we do have some buses that are 50 passengers, 55 passengers. So what we have done recently, last week, we shifted 3 buses. There was a Parent Square message that went out, and we tried to redistribute students, keeping approximately the same exact bus stop at the same exact time, but just switching them to different buses. That has given improvement. But again, these are Band-Aid fixes. They're not really going to relieve the situation. They're just going to free up a little bit of wiggle room. So we did already implement that change, and that's currently working. Why we're here in front of you tonight, because so there's a possible solution, number 1, and working with the bus company, talking with the building principal, Mark Sullivan, we really feel as though adding 1 bus to the high school, and what I've listed is 3 different options, but at least adding 1 bus to make 10 at the high school would allow us, again, to redistribute and get students here quicker. Will adding 1 bus for only the high school tier solve all the problems? No, it won't, but this is an immediate fix that we see will definitely relieve 4 buses and will help free up a situation. There is a cost associated with that, which is broken down. I do want to circle back because, like I said, so the tier issue is definitely something that we need to always keep in the back of our mind. When it comes to Tier 2, well, let me start at Tier 1. When it comes to Tier 1 at the middle school, I don't want to say we can drop kids off anytime. It's the first one, so we have the most flexibility at Tier 1. Anything that we see at the end of Tier 1 that starts at Tier 2 is going to compound into Tier 3. And what that means is that typically we're not dropping students off on Tier 2 to about 8 o'clock. So as we mentioned previously, that 8 o'clock, trying to get to the high school for 8:30 is getting to be more and more difficult, especially due to traffic, construction, just in general. It's not necessarily the number of bus stops, it's more related to where the students are located. Now, we've always had students located in neighborhoods, but we have brought on some new, apartments and other housing structures further on the other side of the mall complex. They're not the problem, right? But those are the ones that we're seeing more issues getting to school closer, right? So the ones further away, let's say closer to the Wilmington border, closer to the Woburn border, and closer to the Lexington border, obviously are the ones that now we have to cross back from town to get all the way to the high school. So that's where we're seeing the issue. So again, a recommendation tonight would be for this committee to support, adding at least one bus to the high school for one tier only while we watch and address that. And if there is a need to, I would obviously come back for the support from this committee to either extend that to all the tiers in the morning, a full day, or potentially review it to add additional buses, which at this time, just a single bus, tier 1. I'm sorry, tier 3, but just for that tier for the high school.
Okay. Anyone have any comments?
I definitely, for solution number 2, don't really like the idea of kids coming to school earlier. I think at the middle school level, they're already coming to school early enough. And I think that it would be way too early for a lot of students.
Through the chair, Mr. Wojcik, it might not be that school starts any earlier, but kids would be allowed into the building sort of earlier and not,
buses would be picking them up earlier, though.
not held on the buses, or is that what you're talking about?
So in particular, right now with the 20-minute conversation of when students are able to get off the bus, we typically cannot get kids off the bus prior to 7:55. So at 7:55, if we are to start unloading at tier 2, by the time the students get off the bus and then the bus can do their check and then leave, it's about 8:02. Right, so if we were able to drop students off prior to that 7:55 time, then we can get the buses out of the school parking lots quicker. and
You're
then
not
start
talking about picking them up earlier, just letting them off the bus sooner.
So at tier 2, it's an issue of dropping them off. At the middle school, again, same exact conversation, we could adjust the routes, let's say 5 minutes, and then drop them off 5 minutes earlier. The problem is right now, whatever time we drop them off at the middle school, we still have an issue at tier 2 that we need to get them off the bus.
Okay,
So
I think
right
that-
now, we're talking tier 2.
The the
possible
point, though, is picking middle school kids up earlier is, I agree, I think they're already too early, so we're not going there.
Absolutely, which pushes us into tier 2. So
Correct.
that's really, we're not going to solve it tonight, but what we're saying is, what we feel is sort of a short-term, immediate impact would be to add one bus, so go from 18 to 19, just for the high school for tier 3, and it's really to get students, to shorten some of the routes so the kids can get here before 8:40 to get breakfast. So that's sort of what the solution is today. I think what we have to talk about is longer term, potentially tier 2, but there are sort of significant issues with that is who's going to supervise the kids if they're let off into the buildings, if
gonna work.
teachers can't.
You're going to need more buses, let's face it.
So,
It is what it is, folks.
or we are also talking about providing, again, we're having the bus company look at potentially fewer stops or looking at a radius where there's no stops. We just want to present the committee with options, but there's no real simple thing. We are trying to present, again, the immediate impact of trying to get the high school kids here sooner so they can get breakfast.
Do you want to vote?
No, I just have a
I don't
question.
think I need a vote. We're sort of trying
Do you
to,
want to vote for another bus?
no, no.
Okay.
Ms.
I
Mr. Wojcik
just
hadn't
wanted to finish
finished, so,
saying I
yes.
support solution 1.
Yeah.
That was going to be the rest of my comment, but thank you for everyone's input.
And I have a question in the middle school. High school, I agree, the buses, that's the way to solve it. But if they arrive 5 minutes early, right? Is that what you're saying you're trying to do?
They let them off the bus early.
Let them off 5 minutes earlier, and you made the comment, there's no one there to supervise them, but isn't the staff there at least a half an hour before that?
Nope.
They're showing up at exactly the same time the students are getting dropped off?
It's a contractual thing. It's how many minutes? 15? 20? I don't
Well,
remember.
Again, it depends on the level. It's a little bit complex, and one of the other things that we were talking about is we would then need to bolster the breakfast program at the middle school, which I think is a good thing, But there's no real simple, if you pull this one lever, you get all these solutions that fixes everything. It just tends to be one of those, anyway, it's a complex thing, so what, we were exploring it. I wanted to write down some information so you have some concrete information, because we don't want to have the same conversations again. We can build off this conversation. I think one solution that, again, that really Bob came up with was adding one bus route to the high school.
It's a great idea.
And then there's a cost to that, and we're gonna see if that has an impact. And then I think as we continue to offer solutions, we're gonna build off the information that you have in front of you.
But at this point in time, are students on all or some of the middle school buses getting to the school and having to sit on the bus and wait because they can't be allowed into the building? Is that now happening?
At the middle school, that is not currently happening.
It is not.
No.
So if you're suggesting letting the kids get into the school sooner, you're also suggesting picking them up sooner.
Well, again, if I could just back up for a quick second. So while there's two possible solutions, I am not looking for any support on solution number 2.
I get that.
Right? That being said is as Dr. Conti mentioned, is that having conversations with the principals and looking at the breakfast program, I think the two are overlapping each other, but that's not a problem that we're trying to solve today. So if we're looking at creating more time in the morning, not only for drop-off, but also for breakfast programs, then we may need to look at that in the future. But today, the real conversation is creating
Okay.
room at the high school.
I just wanted clarification. I think the impression, at least I got the impression, and others may have, that students were sitting on buses at the middle school and not being allowed off the buses until 5 minutes of 8.
That was
And-
how I heard it, too.
And I don't want to think that kids are getting picked up early and then sitting on a bus. So I just wanted to make it clear that's not happening.
So at the middle school, that is not happening. What is
Happening at any
happening
school?
is that at Tier 2, there is a window that if the bus company starts Tier 2 right when they leave the middle school, then they would have students sitting on the bus because they can't unload them. So what they're doing is they're delaying the start of Tier 2 10 minutes,
Okay.
so then they can do the run, and
So
then
nobody sits on the bus.
nobody's sitting on the bus, but it's not an inefficient routing system, so.
Okay, got it. Thank you. Jeremy, you had a question?
Yeah, just, I guess, if we added the Route 1, like, what is the time saving you're going to get for the 20K of cost that's going to benefit us? Are we talking minutes here? Does it significantly impact us, or we don't know until we try? Or what's our thought we're going to get for this money we're spending?
We're hoping, again, we would get the 50 students on this particular bus and then have fewer stops for the 3 other buses that were impacted in this area. Is that?
Correct. So the proposal from the bus company says that we can offload 3 buses by bringing on 1 extra one. The new bus does not have any constraints from Tier 1 and Tier 2, so we have a little bit more flexibility with that, meaning we can start it at the, prescribed time, and then it can finish earlier. What that will also do is relieve stops and route length to 3 other routes that typically show up at the 8:35 to 8:37. So we don't claim that we're going to get 10 minutes, but we claim at least a 5 minutes. So if we can get the students and the buses to show up at 8:30 or 8:32, then we have 8 minutes to get off the bus and get to their next desired location before homeroom, as opposed to 8:37 and getting.
Through the chair, Mr. Brooks, we're targeting the 3 buses that are sort of the worst offenders.
Correct.
To try to.
The furthest away, I can track all that. I guess just the way my brain works is if I'm going to vote for this, I got to know what's our goal, what's our measurement here that we're going to decide if this is effective or not, and should we expand it? What are we going to put on that, I guess, is what I would want to know.
I'm hoping.
You don't have to answer now.
No, but again, what I'm hoping is the principals say those 3 buses that are problematic are no longer problematic, and those 4 buses worth of kids are getting here with enough time to get breakfast and get to homeroom. That would be sort of my measure of that. And it doesn't eliminate the larger problem that we're having, but like I said, it's a concrete thing, because I get frustrated when we're great at identifying the problems, but I want to make sure we're trying to make some progress here.
So you don't need a vote.
I don't believe I need a vote.
You can
Nicole,
go ahead
I
and
need a
do
vote?
this.
We can,
and
the contract
give it a
allows us to make an
try.
adjustment.
And, okay.
And then
So-
where, transportation is going to be something that we talk about a lot, but again, I want to build off a conversation that we've had.
So we understand that you are going to try this, adding a new bus and see if it solves the problem?
Yes.
All right, good. Moving on.
When do we think the start date will be for the new bus? Do we have an idea?
Start date,
Call
Bob?
tomorrow.
Early would be this Monday, but I believe the following Monday is more realistic, just so we can get messaging out and make sure the routes are complete.
So all the parents know.
Yes.
Okay.
So like 30 days later, we just get a check-in, hey, this is working well, we're seeing improvement, not whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, can I just give 2 seconds through the chair,
Sure.
please? It's in front of you, but just for people listening, the NRT has committed to updates included for the Go Beacon app, to look at full route tracking, customize the geolocation radius, edit the geo zones, and choose the alert times. So they have been listening to feedback from not only this committee, but from parents as well.
Good.
They're in the testing phase right now, and these features will roll out into the app automatically, so no interaction from the end user. And then what will happen over the next month or so is that we'll see these as they've been tested, put into the app, and then we'll be able to have more expansion. That's not the end of app updates, but that's the next app update.
Okay, sounds good. So the next item is a long-term facilities planning draft. You want to go over that?
Yes, through the chair. So in front of you, I think it was shared in your packets. I'm not sure
Got it.
if you have both. So in previous conversations, a long-term plan was discussed. What you see in front of you is still in draft form. I believe what we're looking for tonight is to continue the conversation with the committee, seek feedback, and really try to narrow down what we would present to the public and/or Ways and Means and other departments. So what you have here in front of you is basically an expanded version, which I've taken feedback from and also added in my own expectation of what may happen. Again, I please want to stress to you all that it's really, really, really difficult to tell you what is going to happen in year 18 or year 27. But the point being is that we know that there are certain things that are going to come up, whether it's going to be that year or plus or minus 2 years. So this will be a live document and we can adjust it. I will also stress that the numbers that are in front of you on this page are estimates, right? I cannot tell you what an estimate for a new boiler is going to be 20 years from now. I can't tell you how much a field is going to be. I can just tell you what numbers we know now. So what I believe that I would like to see from this committee is not only for support from this, but feedback as to the validity of holding numbers onto this or looking at what's more sincere, let's say 5 years for numbers that I can get updates on, and then how true you would like to hold this document to, the numbers that are on here. Also, like I said, since this is a living document, there will be other projects that will come up that will get added to this. Some may come off and some may shift years. So, I'm taking this very serious and all the information that has come from this committee, but I also want to make sure that I'm delivering a product that has collected all your feedback and it's something that you would be able to support.
Realistically, I think anything more than 2 or 3 years, you're not going to be able to put realistic numbers. And I think everybody knows that. So maybe it's up to you to sort of figure out what you want to put in there, because it's not going to have any meaning. Really, it's not going to have any meaning, because we don't know what something is going to cost 3, 4 years even, and certainly 20 years from now. So comments from the committee on this document.
Yeah, I can jump in. So I think it is meaningful regardless of, the accuracy of a 20-year from now cost. So there are things we can do. So we know what a 10-year average for inflation is. We can apply that to projects 10 years from now. Again, as they move closer to the boat, so up the list from, closer to 25, I would expect those numbers would sharpen, just like, Mr. Kunis said, and I think that's not an unrealistic expectation. Anything outside of 5 years would be a ROM, probably like a 70% ROM, and I think, Ways and Means would understand that as well. Something also I'd ask for is maybe to the right of this column, by year, we say what's our encumbered, or what's our ask going to be. So if you add, column FY '25 across to the right, the total dollar value of what we're asking for, because I think that's going to be what Ways and Means is going to be a little more focused in on what our total ask for the FY is, because then it'll give us some trade space to take off some, smaller dollar values or move things around and adjust as it comes. Would be my suggestion. Again, I think these are all good. And then, if there's, for instance, I noticed on Memorial FY 28 to 20, or excuse me, 30, if it's a phase project, we, just identify it, it's a phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 kind of thing, just so folks, pick that up a little more immediately, that this is a phase project because, we can't do this over one summer, or it's going to take us 3 summers to do that level of infrastructure replacement if it's required.
Okay, there are other comments? Anything? We can revisit this as often as you want. You can bring it to us if you have worked on it and put numbers in, or,
So again, not to get too far ahead too quickly, but we're going to be meeting about fiscal '26 projects in the next couple weeks, so we're going to start fiscal '26 relatively soon. So capital projects will be something that we get into probably in the coming months, so you'll see that very soon.
yeah, and they'll be real.
Those will be
realistic.
real, but I'm just saying, it's not
accurate.
something that's sort of way off in the future. We're starting to put those costs together now, so the fiscal '26 budget process is starting.
Is this a good indication of things that you're probably asking for in FY '26?
It's a great indication of building needs, but this will not support every single request that may be in front of you.
Got it.
You have to still, through the chair, you still have to prioritize. In other words, it's the wish list, and then we prioritize off of, or what we anticipate, and then we have to prioritize what.
Or which ones are more
Right.
necessity now, as opposed to maybe in a future year, correct?
And we haven't even gotten our free cash number yet either, so again, that'll drive some of what we propose as well.
All right.
If I may,
Jeremy.
so I think the other big takeaway too is, Ways and Means wants this as a final or an official document from us. So again, in '26 or, FY '26, we're going to ask for the high school money at $300 million. I think we need to start codifying some of that in a more real way, so they understand that, $50 million and 32 is a real ask that's going to come before them, so they can start doing some of that planning. Because again, I think that's the genesis of this whole thing is the projects are getting more expensive and they need to be planned a little further in the future to fit under the, budget ceiling.
Well, they're very much aware of the high school project, maybe some of the smaller ones they're not. Okay, so we have old business, new business, is there anything?
I have something very briefly. It just came by late, and I apologize, and if the committee wants to push it, I certainly understand, but it was requested, the Latin department has done with Mr. Stringer, has done a trip to Rome, I think in 15, 17, 19, and 23. Again, I just received a request. They'd like to plan a trip to Rome April 17th to 27th. That's during April break. There'll be no school missed. It's approximately $3,900 per student. Again, they've done this trip before. They stay in Rome. Mr. Springer is a very experienced tour leader of Rome, and I've spoken to some kids who have participated in the past, and they've said it was one of the most memorable parts of their high school experience here in Burlington. So I would ask the school committee, and I'll provide you with all the backup, but just for his planning purposes, he requested that I do this sooner rather than later. So I would recommend the school committee approve the Latin trip to Rome over April break this spring.
A motion?
So moved.
Second. The moved and seconded. Any questions?
Just conditionally that I be appointed as a chaperone.
Yeah, take it up with the,
Yeah.
okay, all those,
Elizabeth would be a chaperone for sure. She loved that trip.
all those in favor? Is there anyone opposed? 4-0.
Okay.
Okay, any other new business? All right, hearing,
Just one, sorry, I don't know that we need to vote on it tonight, but there was some confusion or conversation at the field subcommittee meeting. Again, the field subcommittee wants to make a recommendation. They'd like to put a draft together for field scheduling in the version, or in the memorandum of understanding, because we're increasing field capacity by about 30%. The committee feels it's important that we explore that and provide the school committee with a draft of what they think maybe some new scheduling process could be for the fields. There was some sentiment that didn't fit in the original scope of our charter. So I don't know if that's something we need to look at and vote on again later. But again, the committee moved forward, voted a group to put a draft together, and they're going to put a draft as a recommendation to the committee regardless. So
all right, I think that's something you'll have to,
You can make a future agenda item, and we can have a more in-depth conversation, but that would be,
yeah.
and there's no official charter, it's just a charge by this committee. It was mostly on the project, but if it's going to be the sort of the management of the project once complete, you all should talk about it.
Yeah, so, go over the details with Eric. If you need any legal help, talk to Eric, and then it can come to the committee.
Do we
What are you
need,
smiling at?
do we need a vote so that we can discuss it, like to change the charge? No? Okay, great.
Okay, we have need for executive session. We will return to public session only for purposes of adjournment. Executive session is for Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, subsection 3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation. If an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body, and the chair so declares. And I do. That's with the teachers' union or individual teachers about Step 12 longevity. And we also have approval of executive session minutes from a variety of dates and a side letter. So I would take a motion to enter executive session. It's moved and seconded. Ms. DeBrooks?
Aye.
Ms. Wojcik?
Yes.
Mrs. Bond?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, and we are in executive session.